Welcome to Master Your Merger, the podcast for leaders navigating the people side of mergers and acquisitions. Each week, your host Klint Kendrick talks with deal makers, HR leaders, and integration experts to uncover what really works when it comes to people, culture, and performance during a deal. From retaining top talent to aligning leadership, you'll hear real stories and actionable insights from the people doing the work, all designed to help you make your merger work. If you're leading through M&A, this is your weekly playbook.
Welcome to the Master Your Merger podcast. Today, I'm excited for two firsts. Dr. Liz Lance is our first returning guest, and this is our first podcast with two guests, as Liz is joined by her co-author, Suzanne Rudnitzki. They are the team behind the Change Cheat Code, which has a lot of traction in the M&A space, and I believe should be required reading for any team that wants to know the brass tacks behind change. Dr. Liz Lance is an organizational change leader, educator, and consultant with deep expertise guiding organizations through high-stakes transformations. She's passionate about equipping leaders with practical strategies to drive meaningful, people-first change. As co-author of the Change Cheat Code, Liz blends her academic background with real-world experience to help teams navigate uncertainty and turn disruption into opportunity. Suzanne is a seasoned executive and change strategist who has led teams through mergers, acquisitions, cultural shifts, and major operational overhauls. As CEO of a tech company in the payments space, she brings a pragmatic, hands-on approach to leading organizations through complex transitions. As co-author of the Change Cheat Code, Suzanne focuses on making change accessible and repeatable for leaders at every level. Liz and Suzanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I am really excited for this conversation. I shared beforehand that a couple of the leaders that I know in the M&A space actually have the Change Cheat Code as required reading, and I really had the pleasure of being able to look at an early copy, and I'm like, this is phenomenal. So I'm really excited we're finally having this conversation. So I'd love to hear a little bit about you, your backgrounds, and what inspired you to start writing a book like this. Suzanne, do you want to go first?
Sure. I am a multi-industry player. I've gone from automotive to healthcare to tech, owned a few businesses myself, acquired a lot of businesses, and I've noticed that we have a lot of rinse and repeat that should be happening in change management because we know how to do it, but we keep stumbling the same way again and again and again. And it's almost unkind and inhumane to do bad change with humans. So Liz and I just wrote it all down because it's a repeatable process. It should be easy and accessible, as you said in the introduction, for people to be successful. So our drive was, let's make people successful with this. We've done it so many times. We've got the formula. Let's just share it. And so that's what we did. We wrote it down with really practical examples in the book. And people people say when they read the book, they see themselves, or I did that, or I made that mistake. And so it's just a nice guide. And also you brought up something, when people make it required reading, they also share a vernacular. So we use some pretty clear words that identify the stage of change you're in. And if everybody in your team read the book, you'd all be able to speak together in the same language. So we've enjoyed our journey on writing.
That's fantastic. Liz, I can see why you would want to write a book with Suzanne. So how about you? What was your motivation for that? And a little bit about your background.
Certainly. So Suzanne and I had the pleasure of getting to work together in driving change actively together on the same team. And so it's not that we are bringing together two disparate experiences. We have done this together, and we built that muscle memory that we talk about when driving change and making sure that things are going in a way that is understandable. Because too often we see folks approach change in a very clean, linear, rational way, and we know that's not true. Yeah. So it's often that we see people get stuck or demoralized, and we wanted to take what we had done in that organization to help build that muscle and teach that to other folks. And so we created a very simple, practical, both theory and playbook that folks can use in their organizations, in their life, to help drive change more effectively.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about that experience. So, something inspired you to share this. Was there something that happened as you two were working together, a particular experience, maybe something that didn't go so well, and you're like, you know what? We've cracked the code here and we need to share this with others. So was there an experience that you're like, yeah, this is the thing that made us decide we've got to share this with the world? Suzanne?
Well, there's two things I can think of. First of all, Liz and I took great excitement in training the entire company with the change cheat code. We didn't call it that at the time. We called it a change model. So everybody in the entire company had been exposed to it. So it made our jobs easier because everybody spoke the same language. But when I can think of, we thought we were really good, Liz and I. We had a playbook. She knew if we acquired a company, what she did T-minus 60 days out and 30 days out. And we just really had it. We were going around our private equity firm training other companies how to be really good. And then I remember the day I called Liz, and I think it was a Monday. And I said, Liz, we're acquiring a company and the closing date is Thursday.
Oh my.
And all of a sudden, the T-minus 60 game plan that had always worked with all the other acquisitions was gone. But we had enough of a base together that we could fall back on, okay, we're just going to do like MVP on this thing and figure out what exactly we need to get them to cross the line. And it was successful. So, I mean, we always miss a few things, but we learned a few things also.
I'm really glad you shared that. The number of times that I've talked with HR leaders that get pulled into a deal literally at the last minute. It's like, hey, get on the plane. We're announcing this tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we often don't have the luxury of a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. You just figure out what you can do and what you can't do, because stress only is the difference between what you expect to happen and what reality is you're facing. So we just change our expectations to reality.
Yeah, got it. Liz, anything that you want to add about your experience working through that?
The other thing I would add is just around volume. There are some organizations that are just highly, highly serial acquisitive and have a humongous organization to work on just that. My role in the organization we were in was split between multiple things, ongoing operations, but we became moderately acquisitive. And so just the sheer volume of what was happening really called for a repeatable process so that everybody was on the same page. We know what happens next. And it took it from, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, this is happening right now, to, all right, another one of these. Here's how we begin.
I love that. Look, I love this model. I'm not going to lie. You've got me as president of your fan club here. And part of why I love this is, to your point, the process. And you've named the stages so simply. It's hear, fear, near, and cheer. And I'd love to walk through each of the stages and how they can resonate with people working on M&A. So let's try this out. Liz, do you want to tell us about the hear stage and how that plays out in M&A?
Sure. So here, the first stage, and I'll do the body language that I also do when someone's on mute and I don't want to interrupt the conversation.
Yeah.
But the here stage, this is when people need clear, repeated information. Your job as a change leader is to repeat yourself over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, without tiring and without being frustrated by it, because people need to hear something 7 times. They need 7 impressions of whatever it is that you're trying to convey for it really to stick. And so that's what the here stage is all about, is helping people understand who, what, when, where, and most importantly, why something is happening, and to repeat yourself over and over and over again. Notice I did that. That's the here stage.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know a lot of times that I've been tasked with writing talking points for leaders, and folks are like, well, wait a minute, during this announcement meeting, we've got the seller sharing the message, we've got the buyer sharing the message, we have the HR team hearing the message. Don't you think that's too much? And I'm immediately like, no. People's brains shut off in the moment and they can't take on more information. They're often in shock or stunned. So I love that you've pointed out that rule of 7.
Yes. Rule of 7, and also to acknowledge the emotional process that someone is going through when they're hearing about a highly impactful change for the first time. Exactly as you were mentioning, you just need to stick to the basics in those types of announcements, such that people can quell some of those, oh my gosh, do I have a job? Where do I have to go back to the office? What is happening next? Because they will stop listening to the rest
Right.
of your message. And we've coached folks time and time again. You have maybe 2 or 3 sentences, and
Yeah.
the rest of it, folks love to talk about strategy and what happens next and our vision for the future in that first announcement meeting or email. And you might as well not do it because no one is listening. They're wondering, are my basic needs being met? What's happening next? And how will I be impacted?
Well, that sounds like a really great place to switch into the fear stage. So, Suzanne, do you want to talk to us about the fear step?
So all of us, you cannot buy your way out of it. All of us go to a fear stage in a change. So Liz and I are experts. We've written a book on it. You've done it many times. You cannot get out of it. You can only control how bad it is, right? So in the fear stage, your head goes to protection mode. Oh my goodness. And you think all the worst things that could happen. This is such a highly productive stage that M&A leaders don't use enough. So whatever people's worst fear is going to come out in this stage because our mind goes there again to protect ourselves. So if someone says we're buying this company, the first thought is I'm losing my job, right? This is how people think, and we do it to protect ourselves. So what we can do to use this is give space for it. It's got to come out. So we say the here stage, we say what's happening so everyone can listen, and then we go right into the deepest point with people. We jump right in there with them. Tell me what's going on in your head. And they're either going to tell you or they're going to tell their colleagues, and that's going to take up a lot of calories within a company. So we design specific things like you just heard this announcement, tell me what you're thinking. And we allow them to have the space of fear. But also in fear, you're going to dip in and out of it a couple times and change. It's a place where we go, tell me everything wrong with this idea. If you're a leader who's seeking information, and I cannot tell you how many times my team has told me things I didn't think of in the fear stage. Hey, we're moving into this change. We're buying the software. We're merging with this company. What are you worried about? And in one of them, Liz will remember, we had someone who joined from our company, the company we were buying. And I said, so anything we should worry about from the HR front with this company we're buying? And someone said, this person at that new company that we're buying rage quit our company. And this might cause a little distress for this person. And so I had completely forgotten about that. So when you go to the fear stage, use that productively, get all that information out there because somebody can save your bacon by saying, you forgot to think about this. You didn't think about this. There's a time where we need to yank people out of the fear stage because they're kind of over rotating in there. But the initial fear stage is going to happen. So even if you get a new car, which is a good change, there's that moment where you think, did I should I have done this? Was my old one okay? Right? Or I just sold a Jeep last year. I see a Jeep drive down the road. I still have a little remorse. I liked that Jeep, right? And all that's normal. So some people go into the fear stage for a nanosecond. And some people, you see them in the supermarket. They can't choose which soup to buy. They just live in the fear stage. They're going to do something wrong. So it's different for everyone, but we can manage it with the techniques that we've shown you in the book.
Wonderful. Liz, how about the near stage?
Near. So this is you can see land. That's near. When I teach this live, I make sure to do the body language. And at the end, we all do it together. So near, you can see land. This is the turning point. And this is where people start to actually really believe that the change is real and it's happening. And they start to engage with, all right, how is this going to work? How? So often we see folks make an announcement here and then start training on it immediately or saying how it's going to work and how folks are going to do things. But as we talked about, just like you're trying to answer your own basic needs questions in that here stage, you should absolutely not be training on how until you are in near. And that's because folks are not open to learning how the change is going to happen until their fears are dealt with. Yeah. So that's why it's after. And so with training happens in the near stage. It's where that change is real and people need to understand how it will work. And we have dealt with the near stage many different ways. Some of my favorites are field trips. If you're implementing a new system and that system is running in another place, especially in physical environments like retail or manufacturing, find where that is and go see it and go show it and learn how that is. Job shadow, maybe. But to get to experience what the future could look like in near and then learn how to do that yourself or themselves, that's what happens in near. And that's why it's so important to do those training activities in near and not earlier, is because folks just aren't ready for it yet.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I often tell people that during the announcement, the number of cell phones that come out and, the message is, OMG, do I still have a job? And then we try to give them some information on, how things are going to work in the future. It doesn't make any sense. So I love that you pull people out of that into another point where they can hear that message. So message has been delivered. We've done the training. We've taken the field trips, and now the last stage is upon us. So the cheer stage. Suzanne, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, cheer is kind of, you think it's just natural. We all go, woohoo, it's done, right? We have this built into our society. We finish high school, we graduate, we get married, we have a celebration. We went through all the, finding a person worried is the right one, figuring it out. We have this built into our societal norms because psychologically we need an end to things. But we should really make sure that we're very planful when we look at celebrations. So it's not just everybody running around patting themselves on the back. It should be methodical, that we've planned a celebration, that we've set our thank yous, and that we maybe take a moment to say, what lessons did we learn to make the next one more successful? So we do a retro on it. Another thing that you should be putting in place at the celebration stage is monitoring to make sure it's stuck. We say in the book, we so often forget that we forgot to tell the next group of hires about what's operating different. They're going to hear all the lore of how we did things before. And so building in this celebration to thank everyone, but also make sure that it's running smoothly in the future.
It's fantastic. One of my very best friends is a psychologist. And we often talk about the need for us to bring things to an honorable completion, and how our modernity, we don't do a very good job of that. We tend to be like, okay, mission accomplished, what's next? And not really celebrating that. So I would love to hear a little bit about how leaders who are kind of inclined to skip over the cheer stage, right? It's okay, we've done the change and now we got to go do what's next. But can you talk a little bit about why that celebration is so critical to sustaining the momentum, and maybe a couple of stories or some ways that organizations can celebrate progress without it feeling, let's face it, sometimes it's hokey, right? So how do we celebrate without it feeling contrived?
Liz, you're really good at that as a leader.
I love to throw a good party.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So celebration signals that closure and builds energy for what's next. And if you skip it, people tend to feel like either change is endless, or like you are, as a leader, you're not recognizing the effort and the persistence that they had to exhibit to get through this. Now, celebrations don't need to be big. They can be shout outs, storytelling about the lessons learned, or even small rituals that acknowledge the lift. The key is for it to be highly authentic. It's not a pizza party. We know that. It's not the same thing over and over. Some of my favorite celebrations have been when I've been leading change programs that have spanned multiple teams. And when we reach the end, and I was fortunate to be in an organization that had a recurring schedule of company happy hours. And for that month, to mark the end of this change program, my group got to throw the happy hour. So it was themed. I'll tell you about one. We were finalizing and celebrating moving away from some legacy email filtering systems. How boring is that? Email filtering systems. But we threw a grand party, and it was called the Summer of Sunsets because we were sunsetting this email filtering system. And we printed out, those spam emails you get, the very famous ones from certain princes from certain countries.
Right.
We printed a whole bunch of those out on brightly colored paper and decorated with that. And because it was Summer of Sunsets, it had a Hawaiian theme. So we brought in a shave ice vendor to serve our treats. And then we had a signature cocktail and mocktail that were themed towards that. And so we marked the passage of this change, which was a lot more difficult than you would expect for a spam filtering problem, by throwing a party that was not just for our team, but was for everyone, because it impacted everybody across the organization. And we got to celebrate that together. And of course, during that event, honor the team that had worked so hard to do that. One of the additional Liz signature items is I love to give little trophies at the end because people like desk things. And so I love to give little trophies. And for this, because it was a spam filtering system, I got these little spam cans that were turned into piggy banks, and I mounted them on little blocks of wood and made little nameplates for them. And that was the trophy from that change program. We threw a great party. Those that worked really closely on it and diligently got little trophies to put on their desk. And that is one of the greatest cheer stage parties that I could tell you about.
Oh, wow. I want to come to a Liz party now.
Liz throws good parties. Let's do the whole model, like just individually too, because we talk a lot about doing this with teams, but individuals go through changes. We've mentioned humans. So let's take a new hire through the change curve. So when a new hire hears about the job, they're excited. This is a good excitement. And they probably go through this when they're interviewing, but then they finally hear they get the offer, right? That's it's mine, right? And we told you, no matter what happens, you still go in the fear stage. So they're excited to get the job, but there's a fear stage. So with executives, I know they're going to go, oh my goodness, like I'm giving up my options. I loved my team. They're going to have that moment, right? And that moment is about a week after I've got it timed, about a week after they gave notice to their old company and they're kind of waiting to start with us. So I try to go from the here stage to the fear stage, and I'll send them a bouquet of flowers and I'll say, you made the right choice. Right about that week after. Hopefully they're coming out. When they get to the company, they're going to be in that fear stage even longer. They're not going to remember anyone's name. They're going to think they chose a different job than it actually is. They're going to be there a while because they're learning things. But pretty soon they figure out the near stage. They figure out how to get something approved. They figure out how to schedule a vacation. They figure out how to do everything. Now, this is an individual. I try to schedule it about the 6 months mark to say, want to have coffee? And then I'll say, remember all those moments? We'll sit there and have coffee. And I'll say, I remember when you came in, what did fear look like for you? How long was it before you felt like you were in the near stage? And, congratulations to you. You're at the 6 month mark. You've made it, right? So we can do this as individuals, or you can have the grand party that Liz always throws. But we have to be mindful all the time about that end stage of cheer and close it out for people.
It's terrific. So we've talked a little bit about how to do this right. And I firmly believe that leaders want to lead change in a way that makes a difference, right? They wouldn't pour the effort into it if they didn't want it to produce these great results. If you could call out the top 1 or 2 mistakes that leaders often make during this process and how they can avoid them, I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Let me give you one that all leaders make, and it's so simple to change. So just stop doing it, people. They tell you how to feel in a change. Okay. Here are the words to avoid. Leaders, here are the words to avoid. You're going to love this. This is going to be good for you. If you use these words, people immediately become suspicious. And if you want to drive people to a longer and deeper fear stage, this is the way to do it. You're going to love it. You're going to be so excited. This is going to be good for you. This is going to be great for our company. You can talk about yourself. Like, I've been exposed to this and I have been enjoying it. You can talk about yourself, but you cannot deliver other people's feelings. You don't own them.
I love that. I know something I stole from a really great change leader that I now use during acquisition announcements is giving people permission to feel how they feel. Like literally on stage, I'll often say something like, this is probably a surprise to you, and you're probably having a lot of different feelings right now. You can be partly excited and partly nervous and partly afraid and partly curious, and you'll probably switch between those and things I haven't mentioned, and all of that's okay. And it's amazing. Now that I've introduced it, I can literally watch people's body language relax. The shoulders aren't as tense. the jaws relax and loosen. So I think that's fantastic advice. Liz, how about you? Is there a common mistake that you see?
There's one other statement I'm going to add to this list that you should not use, which is don't worry. We love to say, don't worry, we've got this, or don't worry, I know this will be okay. But that causes the worry because it marks that there might be something to worry about, but that you shouldn't do that, which is telling people how to feel all day long. So definitely avoid that. The other thing, and we've talked about this before in my research about what leaders do that they should avoid, is when asked a question about something that isn't worked out all the way yet, or maybe they just don't know, or maybe it hasn't come up in a discussion yet, to give an answer that they think that's how that could work. And we've seen this time and time again. A leader in a public setting, maybe a town hall, is asked, how are we going to do XYZ? And they give an answer about the way that they think it's going to work or their understanding, but they haven't talked to anybody about it. It's not an official policy. And so the next time that they talk about that item or they have to backpedal, suddenly everybody that they said that first answer to believes that either they don't know what they're talking about, they're being evasive, or they're lying.
Right.
Either of which we like. So that's something I heard time and time again through my research around what happens after an M&A and how employees feel after that is they say, we were lied to. Right. People said that it was going to work this way and it didn't. And it could have never, but they gave us this answer anyway. So leaders, my advice on this would be don't tell people how to feel. Don't say don't worry. And also, it's absolutely okay to say, we're working on an answer for this, or thank you for that feedback. Let me take this back to the team and make sure I get you the right answer. That is absolutely okay. You don't have to know everything. You're not expected to, especially in change, because there are so many moving parts. So just avoid giving assumptive, fake, or guessed answers.
Yeah. And if I can add on my favorite thing, the phrase that makes me cringe every time I hear a leader say it is nothing's going to change.
That's a good one.
Oh, man. I think it dovetails pretty well because it might be a really good intention. It's the way that they might think it's going to happen. But number one, something already has changed. Your company has a new owner. So something already has changed. And number two, our businesses and our lives are changing all the time anyway. So whether we intend it or not, something's going to change. So I'll just add that to the list. So I think we've got three
I'm going to add to your ad.
Yeah, please.
Or that's the last change. Because it won't be. I've heard that before. Oh, and we're done with the changes. No, we're not.
Right. Oh, my goodness. We'll have to come up with a 7 deadly sins list at some point.
I think that's a good idea.
Well, so we've talked a lot about how this applies in the M&A space, but we're seeing all kinds of change right now. We're seeing a good amount of geopolitical disruption happening at the macro level. We're seeing AI coming in. We're seeing more and more technology. How does this framework adapt outside of the M&A context and into broader change? So, Suzanne, do you want to give that a go?
Yeah, I'm in the payment space, which is rapidly going to change. People have no idea what's coming next, and it's exciting and it's going to be scary. So I think telling people what isn't going to change when you're doing change is really helpful. So you've probably seen things about agentic commerce, right? That you're going to be able to say, buy me a blue blouse for Friday, and it finds it, knows your size, delivers it to your house, pays for it. It can't try it on yet, but maybe that's coming with some modeling and AI. What isn't changing is you're still going to pay with the same method. It's just going to pay for you. There's still a verification stage. There's still the Rails, MasterCard, or Visa that it's running on. So I think when we see these massive disruptions, it's going to be really important to say what isn't changing, because there's some really stable things behind agentic commerce, just as an example. But if you think of how mind-blowing that is, that you can pick up your phone and do that, and it's coming in, it's not years, it's months at this point. And we're going to have to keep people really grounded if we're going to get adoption on some of these things.
Yeah. How about for you, Liz?
I would offer that this can also apply in personal life, very much so. And in the book, we tried to blend both personal, not so businessy examples with, of course, some business and M&A examples, especially because we wanted the book to be relatable to multiple types of folks. But plainly, I've led a family member through buying a home through this model. I was a partner in looking for a new home for my father, and it was, all right, here's what I'm looking for. I found the right thing. I knew it was right. And I had to walk him through, and that mixed with some behavioral style notes. I knew, okay, I have a very short period of time to get you where I need you to get to, and then you're going to go through this fear stage. But I needed, because I had looked at everything and I knew this was right. My job was to shorten that fear stage as much as I could by bringing as much information to the table as I could. So I did a significant amount of research because my father's very detail-oriented, conscientious type. So brought all of that together. And then once getting into that near stage, then finally it's, okay, how is this going to go? And by noting the time pressures and also noting some scarcity, this was in the early COVID era where there was nothing to buy, and lucky if you found something. I've led a family member through finding the home that they now absolutely love. He's in the cheer stage squarely, tells everybody about it.
You did plan his party, Liz, too, because I remember that.
But just thinking about how those stages are going to apply to anything. We've talked about mergers and acquisitions, starting in a new job. We've now talked about buying a home. It can apply to anything. And if you think it doesn't, try and break it down into smaller parts, because you will find that it does work there. Any type of change, it can apply. And so that's what I start to think about. And if I feel like I'm pushing a change boulder that feels heavier than it should be, I've missed a step. That's typically what happens. If I'm facing resistance that feels heavier than it should, I have to go back to my own model, Suzanne and my own model, and say, all right, what did I miss? Whose needs did I not meet? Because if you do meet the needs of folks in each of those stages, then you can work collaboratively to move through each stage towards cheer. So if something feels extra heavy or more difficult than it maybe should be, reevaluate and make sure that you're meeting the needs of other people.
Great advice. So when I think about change, there's a couple of things that come to mind. One is the natural human instinct to come up with the worst case scenario, right? So I think about that as a piece of our genetic wiring. When our ancient ancestors came out of the trees and were wandering through the savannas, if we heard the grass rustling behind us, we ran because it could be a lion, right? But if it's just the wind, all we've done is gotten a little bit exercise and maybe feel a little embarrassed. But if that was actually the lion or the predator, we're lunch, right? So we're wired to be in that worst case scenario place. And it takes a lot of trust for us to move away from that just biological presupposition that it's going to be bad. How do leaders build the trust to help people overcome that natural programming to get to the worst case scenario? We talk a lot about that in terms of psychological safety. So, Suzanne, I'd love to hear some tips from you as a leader on how you build that kind of safety with your teams.
It's the yes and. You can't rewire the human DNA, right? So it's the yes, we're going to do this, but we're going to do it together. So let's get in a virtual or a real room and everybody lists what they're worried about. And it's been so productive. Like I said, sometimes people say what they're worried about and it's really true and I didn't think about it, so it helps me. But the other thing is you've got a list there, and then I ask them to help partner with me of how we can remove that. And they help bring themselves to the near stage. So if their worry is I'll have trouble in my schedule with training on that because I'm expected to do this other thing. And I'll say, what priority could we move then? And they'll say, well, this one may not be as important. And we'll say yes. And then that worry is removed. And sometimes we have to not ignore it and just say, that's a real fear. And that thing could happen. I can't take it away for you, but I do acknowledge it's there. So I think just getting it out there, what leaders do is, if you just have to change your mindset. People are going to be stunned like they were in an accident in the here stage. Right. They're going to be complaining wildly in the fear stage. And you as a leader are going to be mad because you're already through the stage. You went through here, fear, near, cheer. You're ready to get going with this thing. The last thing you had to do is announce it to your people. So you've been there, right? You got to give that same luxury to your people. And so change your mindset. When people start complaining, you go, yes, stage 2. Like they're already there. Stage 2, only 2 more to go. And what we're doing as leaders is we're going, they always complain. It's not that bad. It's not that hard. If we use that language, that's telling people their feelings. So just change that. You go, yeah, and we're number 2. We're already number 2. Who's coming with me to number 3?
It's awesome. Liz, how about for you?
For me, well, first, to note that the human brain loves to fill white space, and you get some of the most entertaining stories from those fears. But as Suzanne was mentioning, gather people together, say, what's wrong with this? What are you afraid of? What problems do you see with this? And list everything, even if it's small or ridiculous. I'm talking about everything down to the logo colors for the new company clash with my skin tone, and I don't want to wear that swag because it won't look good on me.
It really happened. It really happened.
Yes. Yeah.
But
I don't doubt it.
People will get used to the new rituals you create. So my team absolutely knows that when we're thinking about doing something, we're going to get in a room and I'm going to say, what's wrong with my idea? It's just going to be the next thing that happens. And the ritual I've created is when they hear we might do something, they're ready to tell me what's wrong with it. And I'm ready to embrace that. Right? That's the new ritual. Nobody's upset about that. Nobody's flagged as a complainer. I don't hate them because they're whining. Like we get on the same routine. It's okay to dip down into fear. We're just on bicycles riding back up the hill.
What I would add is that consistency and transparency and openness to feedback builds safety. The last thing you want to do as a leader is be unpredictable in how you're going to react when people bring you those fears. So making sure that you are consistently open and listening and asking for that feedback will build those cultures of psychological safety, those environments where people can come forward with those things, because then you can lead them through. They don't want to feel like if they approach you with something that might not be what you thought, that you're going to react on them or make it harder for them. So that transparency and that consistency will build safety and trust.
And they're also looking at you. So when a child falls down and scrapes their knee, they look at the parent to know how bad it is. Right? Yeah. So if the parents are calm and they just say, all right, let's stand back up, then everything's fine. If they run and go, oh my gosh, are you okay? Right? You get a whining child. So you're developing these people. So that's your job as a leader. Remain calm and take another step forward.
Yeah. One of the things that I strongly recommend when companies launch pulse surveys during M&A is that they actually include a question about, what could go wrong. Word it a little bit more eloquently, but gather that feedback. And now that I think about that in the context of this model, that feels like a really good way to let people who maybe haven't built that trust yet to anonymously move themselves through that fear stage.
It's a good idea.
So as we get close to wrapping up, I would love to hear from each of you one piece of advice that leaders can use as they prepare themselves for the next wave of disruption, whether that's their personal disruption, their business disruption, or just the broader macro context of the disruptive times we live in. So what's your best piece of advice, Suzanne?
I think plan what you're going to do in each stage. Your plan will change when you get into it, but you'll be grounded and you'll know what you're going to do. Otherwise, you're going to say the how in the here stage. You're going to poo-poo the fear stage. You just mentally need to be a good athlete, warm up, prep, a lot of water, right? And because things are going to change on the field, but at least you're starting in a grounded position.
Great advice. Liz, how about you?
Mine is to build those change muscles before that disruption hits. So Suzanne talked about training as an athlete, but to really train and to practice and to make sure everybody has the playbook and is on the same page about what is to come. We talked at the beginning about consistent terminology. If you reach a point where you're with your team where everybody is on the same page with what can happen and someone raises their hand and says, hey, I'm in the fear stage, I'm not there yet, can you help me? You have done amazingly as a change leader because you have created an environment where it is okay to say, I'm not there yet. Here's where I am, and here's what I need from you. So if you can build those muscles and get everybody practiced such that the team can be successful together, you are well on your way to successful change.
Fantastic. So, how do folks get a hold of a copy of the Change Cheat Code? I'm sure there are a lot of people who are really excited about it right now. So, Liz, I see you holding up a copy of it. How do they get one?
These are available in multiple places. Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Amazon is probably the easiest place to get one. That is the fastest way for you to get one. And you can also visit our website at thechangecheatcode.com. And there's also a tool that you can get if you purchase our book. If you purchase our book and you go to thechangecheatcode.com, we have trained a custom AI agent that knows everything about this book and can be your coach or your helper in leading change more effectively.
So you can type in natural language. I'm going to make a change to my organizational design, and these things are changing, and this is when it's happening. What should I do? And it gives you the whole plan. It's like having Suzanne and Liz in your head.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Suzanne, Liz, thank you both so much for joining us today. I know that it's going to make a huge difference for a lot of folks, not just in the M&A world, but folks that are dealing with change in any other context. Really appreciate you joining me.
Thanks for asking us. It was really fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Merger, hosted by Klint Kendrick. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found this valuable, share it with someone leading through a deal. To explore toolkits, resources, and upcoming programs, including our free roundtables, visit masteryourmerger.com. We'll see you next time.